Did I tell y'all that Nib95, Mr. Quality and Access, and I would take quality over accessibility and blah, 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 and value, was bragging on Twitter how, according to him, he did not pay full price for Xbox Game Pass, but instead, he did 2 lots of the Xbox Live Gold upgrade, plus other cheap deal stacking, so his average yearly cost is like 40 to 45 pound. And guess the way that sentence ended? LOL. Is he celebrating value? Wait. Are my eyes deceiving me? Did I just see this guy who did 2 or 3 or so videos on this whole premise of value proposition and blah, 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 only to come out here and be enjoying deals that are available to Xbox Game Pass? It's a very funny scenario because I asked him a few questions on this particular thread. In fact, I was not intending to ask him any question. I had responded to somebody else about a comment. And he said to me that this stacking would take multiple years in advance. And so you required to basically just go ahead and get multiple years to stack it. And that was shocking because at the time he would have stacked all this Game Pass, his criticisms of Game Pass would have been much more, impactful, seeing as Game Pass didn't even have as many games, even though it had really decent games back in the day. And so he took all that effort to get the stacking going, to get his Game Pass subscriptions to stack all the way through many years. So bro either acted on blind faith, or he knew that food was coming with Xbox after they had acquired Activision Blizzard King, or at least when they acquired Bethesda, knowing that those Bethesda games will be going to Game Pass. As much as he may say stuff about, Microsoft and Xbox and such, the Bethesda piece of it, nobody wants to miss out. And somebody in his position who makes content, is a, talking head and such, loves a service like that because it saves him money and reduces his cost basis. I wonder why that is never recommended to anybody else that he may be talking about. All this talk about quality and cadence and all of the above, it's only in this year where Xbox basically obliterated all competitions, by the way, and launched multiple games that people now want to come out and say, oh, it seems like Game Pass is killing it, because their studios just happen to have titles lined up according to, some random, it's all ready, let's get it out. Because if in 2027 or so, we don't have, this cadence of games, these people are going to jump on Xbox and pretend like 2025 didn't happen, right? Of which PlayStation can't even catch up to 2025, both in remaster and brand new titles, right? And they're going to pretend like, oh, you see, Xbox doesn't have anything. When in reality, the pictures and the screenshots are going to stay here. That's why I told y'all, if you're an Xbox user and somebody who is pro Xbox, you need to make your wallpaper this, top selling games and newer selling games and top pre-order charts of the PlayStation Store, so that everybody may see it and nobody can easily pretend like they have amnesia. Another side to this whole thing is there are folk within the Xbox community who seem to basically think that somewhere, somehow, after getting gaslit by these so-called PlayStation fanboys who have given them wrong information, have some framework that when it's all said and done, right, Xbox is making money outside of the ecosystem and has abandoned their own console, which is a stinking lie. I was having a conversation on Twitter. There was a post that somebody tagged me in, and I didn't even know what the post was, about. And I read it, and I was like, oh, here's what's going on. This is about Satya Nadella and him talking about if it's competition they want, then let us compete. Y'all remember when they had actually announced their intent to buy Activision Blizzard King, and he had that smile on his face, and I told you that smile on his face sent goosebumps down the skin of any other competitor's, body, and literally made them run crazy. That PlayStation started begging all the regulators, hey, you got to stop this deal from going, right? So this person came out here and said, these are videos from 2023. Plans have obviously changed. We live in a post-competition time where they lost and are quitting without saying it. Now, this is a big lie. And so World of Darkness replied and said, Gen V, you say Xbox is done? I see you switching sides. Owning Xbox hardware by next year. All in. It's happening, mark my words. This Gen V user says, I'm sure switching sides. I don't have a PlayStation, and Xbox will never be done. Like Atari and Sega are still around, but they're done with us Xbox users. They aren't a charity. The money that they make from the people that buy games is more than the money they make on Xbox. That's where my ears perked up. Y'all know when stuff like that gets said, I'm like, whoa. What'd you just say? Xbox makes more money from selling games than the money that they make from the people? And so I decided, well, let's go ahead and let's see if we can point out what I think is a fair assessment of looking at this particular conversation. Because if we don't look at this conversation, people are going to walk around here misinformed, and they're going to continue to tout misinformation. And I think a lot of these folk have allowed for these PlayStation fanboys to gaslight them. This is why whenever an Xbox fan says something like this, I myself, who've been laboring and sweating and trying to bring out the data, and I have no loyalty of any brand to Xbox, it kind of triggers me, man, because I could sit down on my Steam and be chilling, but then after all the work is done, I see an Xbox user say something like this. I'm like, bro, after all the work that we're putting out there, you can still say something like this comfortably? And so I said, how did you come by these numbers? Game Pass subscriptions bring in $3 to $4 billion annually. Where is Xbox getting that kind of money outside of the console? Are you letting PlayStation fanboys gaslight you? So I put, on purpose, the Tweaktown article that showed that Game Pass had reached $2.9 billion 4 years ago. And the analysts were predicting that it was going to reach $5.5 billion by 2025. Keep in mind that I stayed in between that $3 billion and $5 billion and put it at $4 billion max. That's where I went ahead and put the numbers, right? And so where did that information come from? That information came from the Brazilian authority, basically going ahead to talk about Game Pass, CADE. If you guys remember, CADE back in 2021, this is the Brazilian's economic authority. Now, this person did not bother to do much more research. This is where the problem is. So when you go to CADE, right, let's go ahead and check this out. So CADE talked about Game Pass, and they'd basically done $2.9 billion or so. This was a huge, it generated $2.9 billion, where CADE had unveiled it because they're the Brazilian regulator, right? So since then, they also realized that Game Pass had about 25 million subscribers. This is before we started hearing about the conversions going on, right? And then in 2024, 3 years later, Sarah Bond talked about 34 million Game Pass subscribers. So when I run the numbers, even with Xbox's highest selling game every year, Call of Duty, the numbers can't even touch Game Pass's subscribers at about 34 million subs in terms of Game Pass, using an average of about $12. So the numbers don't even add up. And when people say stuff like this, I got to ask them, do you know what this person replied me? They said extreme speculation using outdated info when they themselves provided no info in the first place. That's the end of the conversation. Anybody that tells you that you're using outdated information while they have no information and they speculated while they accuse you for speculating, they're trying to gaslight you. That's what they're trying to do. And it's because of folk that have been out there sneakishly, possibly, enjoying the benefits of Xbox while telling people otherwise. These people have come to conclusions that are not sound. If they were actually listening to gamers, they'd realize that what Xbox has done is spark jealousy among the ranks of gamers who are not on the Xbox ecosystem. For instance, like we saw on that PlayStation blog, when as many as 600 people commented on this particular, this PlayStation subreddit thread about the benefits of Game Pass compared to PlayStation Plus, and how most people on this particular place agreed, and some of them already had an Xbox that they used to access games that so-called Nib was happy that he had access to for a lower price point. Do y'all see what's going on? I told y'all that once this stuff starts unfolding, everybody's going to start paying attention to what these talking heads are saying and have been saying. Do you remember when I said that? Because that's when we're really going to know who was doing their homework and who was actually either lying, gaslighting, speculating, or fighting some random console war. And you know what's crazy? Some folk on Xbox have gotten their own minds caught up in all of this. And instead of them to basically look at the forest and basically, not get carried away by the trees, they're over here repeating talking points from people who are enjoying Game Pass in secret while they complain and feel discontent. The console war has been psychological, and a lot of Xbox fanboys, you've fallen for it. What a shame. Thanks for watching the video. Peace out.